Good morning and welcome. This is Sunrise Daily, reaching you live from here. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Good morning from Abuja in the Federal Capital Territory. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf.
Well, most certainly these issues are not just going to go away if we don't do the needful. I mean, listening to those two reputable institutions of health practitioners in the country lamenting unpaid salaries, and in the case of NARD, up to 20 months at a time that we are struggling with COVID-19, more so the very, very virulent Delta strain. I'm wondering exactly where we are and if we really even have all of these issues embedded in our hearts. I mean, it's not that these facts are unknown to us. It's not that these things are coming to us strangely. It's not that we didn't know that medical doctors are not getting paid. It's not that we are not aware that certain medical practitioners are not getting the best, one of the questions that comes to my mind is, I thought that when we have a national program such as what we're dealing with concerning this pandemic, COVID-19, all hands would be on deck. All plans will be geared to ensuring that we do the needful in order to ascertain that our people are getting the right kind of care. At a time when there's a lot of complaint, there's a lot of conversations going out there, advising people to do the needful. And in the event that people get sick, they're supposed to go to hospitals and meet healthcare professionals. These issues are still there that they are grappling with. Salaries. Is this the reason why medical practitioners would rather go out of the country? Is this the reason why we do not get the kind of medical services that Nigerians expect that we can get? Is this why we do not have the kind of vaccines that have been, canvassed, variously by so many people? Is this why we are not having the kind of research, backgrounds that we need to get things going in our country as we should? These are so many questions that are begging answers, and I'm wondering who is listening. COVID-19 is one. For God's sake, we're talking about just last week we reported right here, and on the front pages of the newspapers, I hope you saw them, that there are deaths, hundreds of deaths as a result of cholera. And as we have also been informed, there are so many others all over the nation like that. And here we are struggling to pay healthcare workers, especially doctors. I'm just wondering if indeed we want to solve the problems. Okay.
And I think that's a big question, Ayo, whether there is a resolve to solve the problem. You did speak about cholera, and cholera, from what I understand, from what the medical practitioners say, they say in their parlance, cholera is a political disease because it is a disease that is characterized by let's say lack of political will to solve certain issues around infrastructure. For instance, if there were toilets for people to use, and if there was portable water, people, provided around people's homes, even in rural communities, that the question of cholera wouldn't come up. So there are huge questions around the politics of healthcare in Nigeria, whether we're truly, as a people ready to fight certain diseases, whether we are paying premium attention as we ought to give to healthcare in general, and also those who man that workforce. I'm just wondering, what is the rationale behind that letter from the National Salaries, Incomes and Wages Commission asking the Accountant General to remove doctors who are lecturers from the Converse salary scale on the IP's platform? If the National Income and Wages Commission was going to make such a move, shouldn't they have had that conversation with the NMA or, with the doctors themselves to say, I mean, we already understand how fragile our healthcare is. We know how fragile the workplace is. And we know what battles the federal government and even state governments have had to fight. Even especially the associations fighting back to get what duly they should get. We've seen the long drawn battles on hazard allowance with the resident doctors in particular. And now we just go and look for trouble, because essentially this is what this is about. If they are already being paid on the same scale with their colleagues, and you say, oh no, because you're lecturers, it doesn't matter whether or not these are the people who groom the people who will eventually go into practice, we decide to remove them. I don't know. There needs to be some explanation, at least to us, because at the end of the day, it is the people who will be greatly affected by this particular effect, will be affected by whatever it is the doctors decide to do as a result of this action. So in the first place, shouldn't everybody be carried along to say, this is why we think that there needs to be a distinction? Then when you now come to what the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors, NARD, have been saying, don't forget that all through the period when NARD was going on strike in different phases, also asking for their hazard allowance, they also drew attention to these state governments who were owing their tertiary institution workers, or who are also owing their colleagues in tertiary institutions in their states, their state university teaching hospitals. And you have to ask, you know, how can you owe workers 20 months of their salaries? You first of all ask, I mean, the doctors, they don't spend 4 years like everybody else does, or 5 years at most like lawyers do. They spend at least 8 years, 6, 7, 8 years. I mean, that's how long we're told it takes to become a doctor. Did they go through all of that to now be owed salaries? Is that how now lowly we value this profession? That, you know, a doctor graduates from school, you know, is that a resident doctor somewhere doing what they're supposed to do while they're trying to, you know, finish and then maybe go into specialization? Then what we teach them, what we start to do is to owe them salaries, and it's not for 1 month or 2 months. And we're not even having conversations with them. These things go on for 3 months, 5 months, 10 months. Then they go on to 20 months. That's over a year. And it's okay. It's okay for political leaders to have political meetings and think that, you know, democracy is all about elections, not about bettering the lives of people and ensuring that services that are needed are given to them. When last did any political leader pay a random visit to a general hospital to see what is obtainable there, to see the people who are actually being served, and how your action or inaction affects those who should actually get the service which you're supposed to give on a good day? There are huge questions, around our political leadership. There are huge questions around the political will to do right by our people, to ensure that they get services when and how they should get the services, because it is what is required. That's why people are in offices. And I think that, you know, it might sound like I'm ranting on this morning, but the truth of the matter is, right now, the picture I have in my head is a recent visit I made to just Nyanya General Hospital, a community right here in the Federal Capital Territory. You should see the crowd of people who besiege these hospitals, and you now have doctors who are not motivated. You have to ask, what sort of service would the people who go to those hospitals get? And I think that's a picture that, you know, we should try and paint and imagine in our heads this morning.
You know, Markwell, I just, as you were talking and going on and on about these healthcare delivery practitioners, medical doctors in particular, the only two words that come to my brain, my head right now, is brain drain. Yes, it has to do with brain drain. And I remember that it was during the Babangida government of the 80s into the 90s that doctors were leaving the nation in droves. Is that what we are calling for again? Same for academics. Just how many weeks ago we understand, just a few days ago, we understand that ASU is also warning of going on strike again simply because the federal government has reneged on some of the promises that they made. Things can't continue like this. We can just get ahead of the issues and do what we promised to do. But then there are so many other issues on the front pages of the papers this morning, and the Nigerian Tribune is what we would like to begin with. Supporters, Obas throng Cotonou court as Igboho's trial holds behind closed doors. Yes, that's the lead of the paper this morning, and the story you'll find on page 2. Gani Adams rallies Benin Monarchs, Afenifere Lords, Olubadan Oni. All of them on page 2 of the Nigerian Tribune this morning, and so many other stories. Right under that one, something related, though different. Tension in Anambra, commercial activities grounded in Abuja over Anambra Kano's trial. DSS fails to produce him in court, trial adjourned until October 21. Kinsmen raised the alarm over his death. IPOB seeks access to him. All of that you will find on the inside pages this morning. So many stories, all grappling for attention, and this one right above the nameplate: Buhari signs 982.7 billion naira supplementary budget, heads for London for education summit, medicals. Stories on page 8. Let me not just say anything about that. The back page has learned expressions with Ebmolu Adegboro or SAN, and it's about what? Nigeria and Twitter, part 2. That's the Nigerian Tribune today.
Starts with this one. Daily Trust has this one. Secession, Kanu to remain in DSS custody as Igboho's fate hangs. IPOB leader absent as court adjourns to October the 21st. Economic activities disrupted in Southeast. Afenifere backs Igboho, criticizes federal government. The story is on page 5 of the paper. You have a number of other stories just at the bottom here. PDP governors ask National Assembly to entrench e-transmission of election results. That's also on the front page. Police probe Kano anti-graft boss as Assembly recommends sack. That's also there. 3 more students escaped from bandits' den in Kaduna. So while some were released by the bandits themselves, we've been seeing some students being able to successfully escape. Now, how many more will be able to escape? We don't know. I mean, before they are rescued. But this does show that there is, it would seem, some leeway for rescue, assuming we were to, think up such an operation and decide that we want to free the students who are in the custody of bandits. We've seen even some children escape in Niger State. So that story is on page 10. I give you details. Now look at this. Pension assets now 12.66 trillion naira. That's according to PENCOM. Don't forget that in recent times we've been hearing that, looking at the monies there, federal government or even state governments are looking to borrow some of the funds in the pension funds. But I don't know, maybe there's still discussion around that, maybe there isn't, but page 18 might give you insights to how the assets came to 12.66 trillion naira. Let's leave it there for Daily Trust.
And flip to the Vanguard newspaper, which is also interested in both gentlemen, actually. Igboho, FG, Beninese lawyers battle over extradition in court. Stories on page 5. The rider's supporters insist Igboho committed no offense against Benin Republic. Journalists' supporters barred from courtroom. Benin security operatives remove leg chain, handcuff. He is not under any immigration-related probe, Ilana Modua insists. Gani Adams rallies Benin Monarchs for Igboho, says we must stand by him. Afenifere warns FG to stop harassing freedom agitators as court releases 48 Yoruba Nation agitators. Find all of that on page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper today. And also related is the picture and the story under it. Protest in Anambra, that's what the picture is about. Kano, Newe, Onitsha locked down as supporters protest. Story is on page 9 of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. Right above the nameplate, FG to end 30 billion naira monthly electricity subsidy next year. Yeah, you heard right. Subsidy. Electricity subsidy. 30 billion naira monthly. Do the math for a year. It's part of the budget. That's according to the Vice President. The story is on page 21. And Marco, you talked about pension. Well, cheering news. FG begins payment of outstanding pension contributions. Story is on page 19. And you find all of it in there. Mr. and Mrs. Oh, it's Mr. complaining now. Mrs. is not inside. You called me a wretched lawyer because I told you to wait till next month for the 50,000 naira you asked for. There is no need. You asked for. There is no need for you to remain silent because what you just said will be used against you when situation improves. That's Mr. Talking right there. The back page has a lot of sports, including Olympics. That's the Vanguard newspaper today.
That before will be used against us when this situation improves. I'm sure Mrs. will be like, yeah, let it improve first. Well, leadership is next here. Bandits go berserk, kidnap 60 in Zamfara, monarch in Kaduna, kill 2. So that story is what's making the front pages for leadership newspapers. Abduct 2 soldiers in Borno, 2 others in Yobe. Parents of abducted Islamia pupils in a fix over new ransom courier. Yes, it was reported yesterday that the person who was said to have carried the ransom to the bandits in the forest in Niger State to get the Islamia pupils out was also abducted. So right now it's like they're trying to get a new ransom courier. Police DSS keep mum over collection of ransom through banks. Yes, there was also a story reported that bandits in the FCT, I don't know if they're bandits, kidnappers in the FCT were collecting the ransom payments through the banks. So there are huge questions as to the audacity of these kidnappers, why they're getting as bold and why it would seem that there is quiet on the part of those who should now be able to do some search or do some investigation with this sort of credible links. But this is what the leadership is reporting. Police, DSS keep mum over collection of ransom through banks. You have some stories at the bottom here. Senate ministers in supremacy battle over NDDC board. Those are the kinds of things that occupy our attention. Battle. They just know how to battle over, juicy appointments. What about service to the people? That's the big story for a number of people. Bleak summer for travelers as airfare soar amid naira devaluation. That's also there. PDP governors insist on e-transmission of election results. And of course the story, PMB leaves for UK on 8th medical trip in 6 years. Yes, and those keeping count. It's on page 8 of the paper. Let's leave it there for leadership newspaper.
Nigerian News Direct has this one also on the, Kano Igboho stories, but this one is about, yes, that's what you have on the front page. Separatist agitations, confusion over Kano's absence in court. And there has one rider, Igboho's fate on extradition unknown. Find all of that on page 2 of the paper this morning, and so many other stories also begging for attention. That's it for the Nigerian Tribune. So many other stories, you can choose yourself.
And for you, Kano's absence forces 3-month delay. Court dithers on Igboho's fate. That's what the Guardian is saying. Amid heavy security, DSS blames Kano's absence on logistics difficulties. IPOB leader drags Nigeria, Kenya to African Rights Commission, seeks return to UK. IPOB to DSS produce Kano to prove he's not dead. Commercial activities grounded in Onitsha, Nnewi for trial. Police disperse supporters as Igboho's trial resumes behind closed doors in Cotonou. Page 2 will give you all the details. PDP governors insist on electronic transmission of election results, reject direct primary, task NAS, NCC, INEC on e-transmission of election results, accuse Buhari of converting presidential villa to APC headquarters. PDP governors to Nigerians, get your PVC, rescue country from maladministration. Well, there are huge questions as to the state of the PDP itself, so Let's see what happens. Page 2 might give you details on whether there was also a conversation on that. Beneath the nameplates, you have a number of stories. WHO raises fresh safety concerns about Hansen, AstraZeneca, COVID-19 vaccines. That's also there. Buhari travels to UK for education summit, yes, and medical checkup. So it's a 2-in-1 trip. Page 3 will give you details. Let's leave it there for The Guardian.
And talking about why Kanu didn't appear in court, if you're wondering why, you'll find it on the front page of Blueprint newspaper this morning, why Kanu could not appear in court, along with a number of other stories. That's the lead one. But another 80-year-old first-class monarch abducted as El Rufai suspends school resumption in Kaduna. Medical doctor's wife, one other kidnapped in Benue. FG tasks AIGs to deal with criminal elements. So many other stories you'll find on the front page of the Blueprint newspaper this morning. And that's the papers this morning. We're back for the issues for the day. Do stay with us.
On Friday, 16th July 2021, the Independent National Electoral Commission published the list of candidates for the Anambra State governorship election in line with the provisions of the Electoral Act and INEC guidelines for the election. In compliance with the judgment of 2 competent high courts, INEC published the name of Honorable Chukuma Umoji, a member of the Federal House of Representatives, as the valid and duly nominated candidate of our great party. All institutions of state must obey the judgment of courts. That is the position of the law. We're just asking INEC to follow the law. And what is the law? There is a judgment from Jigawa State High Court saying that there is an authentic national chairman in the person of High Chief Judo KK. That is recognized by the law. That is recognized by the law. And so if the High Court has ruled that the national chairman of APGA is High Chief Judo KK, any other judgment coming from a court of concurrent jurisdiction or concurrent jurisdiction cannot alter what has already come to place. The highest they can do now is to go to appeal, which they already did.
We submitted the particulars of our candidate on July 2. It was the end on July 9. INEC received it the same July 2 and acknowledged it. According to the Electoral Act, INEC was supposed to have published that name 7 days after receiving it, which means should have published it on the 9th. Now the question is, why did INEC wait? Why was INEC waiting? Are you getting me? Till 16th, which is today, because the information we got was that INEC delayed it today so that they will issue nomination papers, documents to a stranger, an alien, some people alien to APGA, to issue particulars to the forms and everything, for them to fill and return the same today and the name published the same day. That is unacceptable.
Indeed, the drama gets a little more interesting as the elections approach in Anambra. November 8 is the day that they have been scheduled to hold, and it was saying that the political parties maybe are not quite ready, or maybe there is just a lot of political tussle going on. What is happening, particularly in APGA? Yes, we've seen what is happening in the PDP. You've seen snippets of what is happening in APGA. It was seen that their candidate has not yet been listed by INEC, or not the candidate which they had expected to be listed is not who has been listed. But we get a little more insight right now with Senator Victor Ume, who is a former national chairman of APGA. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you. Good morning. Welcome, viewers.
Let's From the last time you were here, I think by that time the name of your candidate, we were expecting the name to be published as the duly nominated candidate of the All Progressive People's Grand Alliance, and it was seen that that hasn't quite happened. Walk us through all that has been happening in the party, because I'm sure right now people are wondering what is happening. Why does it seem like as if there is rancor in APGA's within APGA's ranks, and what exactly is going to be the fate of the party ahead of the November elections?
Well, thank you, Makbe. You recalled correctly that on the 25th of June, I was on this studio where I appeared with the INEC National Commissioner for Information and Voter Education, Barrister Festus Okoye. You also recall that during that program, you put a question to him. Who are the recognized leaders of APGA as in national chairman and national secretary? And he answered without equivocation and pointedly that the national chairman of APGA is Victor Oye and the national secretary of APGA is Labram Mako. He didn't mince words in stating it clearly. And that he also said that there are no factions in APGA to the knowledge of the Independent National Electoral Commission. He went further to also state that during the uploading of nominations, that they will give access code to INEC portal to the Chief Victor Oye-led APGA for them to upload the nominated candidate of APGA in that election. He said all these things on the 25th of June, and they didn't just stop there. At the time they were issuing this access code to political parties to upload their candidates, they gave us the access code to Chief Victor Oye-led APGA. And the party complied with the way INEC directed them to submit their candidates. The name of Professor Chukuma Soludo was uploaded to INEC as the duly nominated candidate of APGA. INEC accepted it. And they went further to submit hard copies of his particulars and that of his deputy. INEC accepted them and acknowledged them. So we're waiting for the publication, as I said, which they ought to do by Section 31(3), which has been repeatedly said of the Electoral Act. They should do that within 7 days. They did this on the 2nd of July, so it was expected that by 9th of July, INEC would publish the particulars. Let me not make a heavy weather of this, because they published on the 16th of July for all political parties. So it wasn't a case of APGA being left behind. But the question today should be, why did APGA, why did INEC abandon the leadership of APGA, which they correctly have been dealing with for the past 2 years? On the 15th of July, the INEC said they received a court order made by Jigawa State High Court that sat in Birnin Kudu, that compelled INEC to recognize one Jude Okeke as the acting national chairman of APGA and to receive the candidate of APGA for that election from him. You know, so one would have thought that that would be a joke. The next day, the 16th, INEC did that and published the name of somebody who they said Jude Okeke. I don't know how he submitted his name, whether he uploaded his name, or did he comply with any INEC guidelines to bring in that candidate. They published him to the consternation of every Nigerian. Going back to tell you why this is important, Nigerians will know the truth, is that they said Jigawa State High Court judgment and order that compelled INEC to accept Jude Okeke. The judgment was delivered on 30th of June. 30th of June. And they didn't serve INEC this order until 15th of July, a date to the publication. So it looked like somebody was waiting for something after almost more than 2 weeks. Another was obtained to be able to foist this confusion on APGA. And they have done that. Like I posed the first question, why did INEC abandon the leadership of APGA that they have dealt with in the past 2 years? It's a very critical question.
What were you expecting INEC to have done under the circumstance?
INEC had no business with the so-called Judo Keke and that court order from Jigawa State High Court. They had no business with that. Because INEC, like Okoye pointed out that day, monitors activities in political parties and it keeps record of national officers of all political parties in Nigeria. In 2019, APGA had a national convention at Oka where the tenure of office of the current leaders of the party were renewed. They were re-elected for a second term in office. Remember, I was national chairman of this party for 10 years. And it was when my tenure ended that we organized a convention in 2015 when Oye and his team were elected, And in 2019, 4 years, it required that their tenure needs to be renewed. They wrote INEC that there will be a national convention of APGA on the 31st of May. And they gave INEC the venue of that convention to be Professor Dora Akonili Women Development Center in Oka, in Anambra State. That is the procedure. If you give INEC notice, you must state the time, the date, and the venue of the event. So APGA complied with this, gave them this notice. And on the 31st of May 2019, INEC raised a team of monitors that went to that convention in Oka, where Chief Victor Oye, Labran Mako were re-elected as national chairman and national secretary, along with other national officers of the party. INEC produced a report from there. The monitors that came produced the report, which is also available.
So,
I'm coming. So they did, they monitored it, and since that date, they have been dealing with these leaders of the party. They monitored their election into office from 31st of May. Then I'll also tell you that in 2020, around April 2020, somebody challenged that convention that produced them in a high court in Anambra State.
Is that Edozie Njoku?
Not Edozie Njoku. Edozie Njoku, I'll come to him very shortly. In that judgment of the Anambra State High Court delivered on 18th November 2020, the court determined that the election of these officers were valid and that the National Convention was conducted in accordance with APGA Constitution. The Court of Competent Jurisdiction did this, or rather the court said, and the judgment is there. This judgment is with INEC, the one that was delivered on 18 November 2020 that validated this convention and affirmed these officers as our national officers of the party. Then, suddenly, somebody on 15th of June emerged. I made an allusion to it during that program.
Year.
This year, June, 15th June. Some people gathered somewhere in Abuja. I told you in that program of 25th June that I was getting ready to go to the World Congress, ad hoc World Congress, where we elect ad hoc delegates for the primary. And I saw a live broadcast where some people were there saying that they were holding a NEC meeting of APGA. So I looked at them, I knew it was one of those things when things come, people are sponsored to come and cause trouble. So I laughed it off and went away. I didn't know that very shortly we'll start hearing the news that APGA now has gotten an acting national chairman, in the person of Judo Keke, and they make a meeting at that. I'm a member of National Executive Committee of APGA. All the organs of APGA, minus the National Working Committee, I am a member of all of them. The National Convention, I'm a member of APGA's National Convention. National Executive Committee, I am a member of National Executive Committee. You see it. Board of Trustees, I am a member of Board of Trustees. And even at that, as a member of these organs, I'm telling you, I'm a life member by virtue of the fact that I served as National Chairman of APGA, all former national chairmen of APGA and national secretaries are members of these organs, minus the National Working Committee. You see, I'm a member of the National Caucus. So if there's a meeting of APGA, I should be able to know who convened the meeting. And because I'm a member of those organs I have listed, if there's a NEC meeting, I should be in the NEC meeting.
What if they have been sidelined and you are the only one who
nobody can sideline me. I'm not the only one. If you go to APGA Constitution, you see members of various organs of the party.
So
for this National Executive Committee we are talking about now, the governor of Anambra State is a member. The deputy governor, all governors elected by the party.
So
through the plan of the party.
You know was in that.
I couldn't recognize anybody. I could only recognize somebody who was reading the text of press conference now on this screen. He was my national youth leader in 2007 when I was national chairman. You know, he dropped off at some point in 2013.
Dropped off to where?
No, he ceased to be because his tenure ended in 2011. Then in 2013, when we had a vacancy, we reappointed him as acting national chairman. And that was where he stopped with us in 2015. So he had ceased to be a member of the National Working Committee of APGA, let alone a member of any other organ of the party.
But he is still a member of APGA.
I don't know. I wouldn't know. Those who are managing the party today will know whether he's still a member. But what I'm saying is that those people that gathered and said they were holding a NEC meeting were people I have never met in my life. I saw it on screen. I've never met them. This Jude Okeke I'm talking about now, I don't know him. I have never met him. And he has emerged acting national chairman of APGA by order of Jigawa High Court. Let me tell you that this is a problem we have in Nigeria, where people will leave their due diligence in the discharge of their statutory responsibilities and begin to clutch straws, you know, unnecessarily. When INEC was served that order, what INEC would have done would have been to look at APGA constitution, look at the national officers of APGA that is with them, you know, the list that is with them, and look at that Jude Okeke's name and see if he's there.
And willfully disobey a court order?
No, you are talking about court order now. I've told you that there's another judgment and a court order that has dealt with that issue in November 18, 2020. And that is the order of court that is first in time. That judgment is still subsisting.
What did the order of court say?
He says that Victoria and his executive were validly elected at National Convention of 31st of May 2019. And that they should continue in office and nobody should interfere with their discharge of their duties. Now, from what the Jigawa High Court said, it said that Jude Okeke, from the folklore, because the case they stated before the Jigawa State High Court in Kudu is that Jude Okeke was the deputy national chairman south of APGA through Dozie Njoko, who is claiming that he conducted a convention of APGA on 31st of May 2019 in Owerri, Imo State, where INEC never went. INEC was not aware of this group, and they've been ignoring them since 2019 till date. They've been ignoring Dozie Njoko because at no time has INEC ever recognized Dozie Njoko as national chairman of APGA.
So give us a status of where your candidate, I mean, as produced by the convention you attended.
The primary.
Yes, the primaries that was conducted. What is the status right now?
He's the validly nominated candidate of APGA. Nobody can take it away from him.
No, what I'm saying is, has his name been published by INEC as the validly nominated?
They have not. We have not seen them effect that change of that mischief, because
a name obviously has been published for APGA. Hasn't a name been published for APGA?
There was a name published according to what we saw, that person was submitted by the Jude Okeke, who I have told you is not a member of the party like they're saying. But even at that, if Dozie Njoko, who he claims to be his deputy, has not been recognized by INEC for the past 2 years as national chairman, how can his deputy emerge and suspend him and then proceed to go and get a court declaration that is now the national chairman of APGA? And apart from that, it is the same Jigawa High Court that now validated Dozie Njoko's claim of having purportedly conducted a convention in Owerri in 2019. No court had done it for him. So it is a bizarre development where somebody who his principal is not recognized by law, his principal is not recognized by Independent National Electoral Commission, now became the principal, and INEC started dealing with inciting a court order.
Have you had cause to visit INEC's office to table your complaint? Because you posed a very strong question. Why has INEC abandoned the leadership of APGA, which they have been dealing with for the past 2 years? The
leadership of APGA that I know,
yes,
I've been part of in all its activities is the leadership of Chief Victor Oye. And
so
they have been writing. They've been writing INEC
beyond
series of letters. They have gone there too.
Yes.
I think he explained it on television. If you're listening to him, they've been going there. INEC chose to obey an obnoxious court order from Jigawa State High Court, and decided to disobey a judgment, a subsisting final judgment of Anambra State High Court on the same matter that came last year, November. You know, clearly about 6 months after, before that of Jigawa. Why should INEC disobey that judgment and go on to obey an order made by Jigawa State High Court in respect of somebody they did not know? I think the answer is very clear, that INEC is being economical with the truth. When I came here, when we argued the issue of notice for the conduct of ad hoc delegates, I told Okoye here that they were being mischievous. When they now saw that that issue of notice will no longer fly, I think that's how this conspiracy came up again. Get us, even if it's a magistrate court order, that's the one we will obey. And you abandoned an executive. You were part of its election, the executive you've been dealing with up until 15th July, a date to the publication of a list of candidates. Why did they wait for such things to happen? And this judgment of Jigawa State High Court, which we are talking about, in that judgment, Oye, Victor Oye, was not mentioned in any line as having been removed from office. So that court did not order INEC to stop dealing with Victor Oye as the national chairman of APGA.
I'm going to ask you to hold your thoughts now.
Yeah.
Let's quickly take this to Lagos.
Okay.
Ayo has another guest.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Mokwe. Okay, Kechuku also joins us in this conversation. He's Executive Director, Development Specs Academy. He joins us virtually. Thanks for joining us this morning. And I'm just wondering what you make of all, of the things that you have heard so far. It's just 3 months, a little over 3 months to the elections in November, for the next governor of Anambra State. And the build-up didn't start just yesterday or day before yesterday. It's been a while. What do you make of all of this? Is it confusion or disunity, you want to put it?
Well, it's not confusion, it's not even disunity. I think it boils down to probably the failure of the party to acquire enough cohesion over time. Because all the action that's going on, if you like, call it enemy action, is by individuals who have some grouse. I wouldn't know what that grouse is. But what it shows is that you have within the party forces or interests that think they will be better served by subverting probably the established leadership of the party. And in the process of trying to serve whatever interest they have in mind, everybody went around shopping for court orders, court injunctions, and all manner of restraining orders. And if you look at them, as Victor has pointed out, it's all first. I think quite a number of them boil down to abuse of court process. A number of them boil down to contradictory judgments, which on its own should put the judiciary in the line of fire. And so questions must be raised about the role of INEC in all of this. Because if from the records you have established that this is the subsisting and substantive leadership of the party, if, as suggested, a person who was not at any time, who was once known to be a deputy and whose position didn't change, should suddenly emerge as a leader through a process that's yet to be explained, and you decide to deal with him, that's another issue on its own. So APGA is facing a more serious problem than internal contradiction. And I'll tell you why. It used to have more than one state in the southeast. Today, there's only one. And if this kind of crisis goes on and leads up to November, several things are likely to happen. Number one, APGA may end up with a factional thing. They may end up not fielding a candidate, and that may actually lead eventually to the demise of the party. I think that if there's enough internal cohesion, people will be more worried about losing the election than about having their candidate. And I think that individuals are focusing on self-interest more than building a party that will win. The party has been in power for quite a number of time with the incumbent governor and extension of 8 years. This will be the wrong time to lose. And let us know the terrain too. We have within the terrain actors. Of course, PDP is in total disarray. It will be a miracle if they put themselves together. Unless, of course, Obiora Okonkwo is able to solve the problem for them by holding what he's holding at the moment. You forget that Andy Oba is still on the scene. And Andy, you know his methods. Ifeanyi Oba is there too. So APGA needs to get its act together. Court injunctions will not solve the problem. Some people are angry. That anger will not be resolved. But it's now a question of man past man. That's what everybody is doing. Let's see how far it will go. But what it means is that the House is now so thoroughly divided that even if an election were to hold, those who are still angry, even if they end up not having their candidate run, they are not likely to support the candidate of any of the factions. So I think the greater worry for APGA at the moment is, are we even likely to remain a party after this election? If you're talking in the line of advice, it's for them to sit down behind the scene. It eventually will boil down to the men and women sitting down to talk. That, look, we're looking bad in public. What is it that's making you do this? We used to work together. If it's not resolved at that level, court injunctions will not solve any problem. It will further polarize individuals and the party and will lead to a loss in the election itself. That's my initial intervention.
Well, you definitely have a lot more to say about this, Dr. Ikechukwu, because I'm just wondering, I mean, you have talked about a number of things here. You've talked about the predominant role of influence, and you have also, you know, perhaps looked into the crystal ball. Well, it doesn't really need a crystal ball to say that if, you know, this continues, there is the likelihood that APGA might not be able to field a candidate. And this has happened, you know, in this particular Fourth Republic a good number of times, especially for governorship elections. There are many other things to unpack in all of this. That influence thing, could it be some other things in play that one is not looking at? We'll do a little with all of that when we return from this break. Do stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. The conversation continues on the Anambra elections and all of the issues happening within the ranks of APGA. Dr. Ikechukwu is still with us, Executive Director, Development Specs Academy. One of the things that came to mind, I mean, from all of the things that you're saying, that realizing what is at stake, could it be that these the divisions we're seeing, the confusion that seems to be in play, is actually some kind of strategy to, you know, from forces beyond APGA to give the opportunity to other political parties? Is this something that is likely, or you think there is no chance of it?
No, I think it's even more than likely, because it's quite possible. I remember we're now dealing with hypothetical situations and possibilities. It's possible that some people may have been advised or funded or encouraged to begin, if you like, internal enemy action. Just like what happens, what the federal government sometimes used to do in the past, of dividing labor by getting somebody to set up a faction, or what university administration sometimes do by getting somebody to become an alternative to the union president. So that, I suspect, is one of the issues on the table. And that's why one is a bit concerned that the way it's going, because that confusion is in APGA, that confusion is in PDP, and it would appear you're not hearing anything at all about APC, even though there was the issue of whether actually APC held an election, primaries. But you can see that their problems are far less than the others. And for the Ifan Yoruba group, there's also another problem. Let's play the scenario. PDP is in confusion. Obiora Okonkwo is very likely, he's fully on ground. Let's not deceive ourselves. He has control, he has access, he played very well. And remember, he's from Central, which is presumed not to be the required zone, the favored zone for the ticket, but he came second and lost by only 4 votes. So that tells you he's very strong. All the party leaders today are meeting with him, even though his Valentine is also on the line. So if you move it over to APGA, you have a sitting governor that trounced all the other parties in the last election. When I say trounced, clobbered them to a state of unconsciousness. APGA won. People may argue about the method used, but my question to them is always, why are you not in the same terrain? Why didn't you use the same method? So admit defeat. Now there's a possibility, using the power of incumbency, that the party may retain the position. And if there are other individuals and parties desperate to dislodge APGA and Obiano, there's nothing they will not deploy, especially resources and individuals who are available to be used for it. Now, that is a possibility. It is not new. It has been deployed in the past. And that's why I think that APGA has to really up its game. The party is in tatters, and it applies to the others. When I say in tatters, it's not that the leadership is not known or respected, but that there are putative claimants to the position of leader, and they have their own. So even if it's 2 people, each faction is taking, that's APGA -2. Question, is it possible there are other forces? Absolute yes, and is a matter for genuine concern. Because there are issues, there are baggages here and there. There may be people who don't want Obiano to be succeeded by whoever he likes. There are people who may have issues with Soludo. I mean, his candidacy had been touted for more than a year. Now it became a reality. So all kinds of scenarios are possible. But on the question of whether it's external forces intervening, the answer is absolute yes. It is a clear and distinct possibility.
Well, I'm sure that my colleague Markwe may have a question for you as well, but before that, let me just ask you this. Now, given this information that may have also been considered by others, I'm just wondering, how significantly do you think those interests of every faction, now there are 3 factions of APGA vying for this post in Anambra State, how significant do you think those interests are, those grievances are, to the effect that the politicians are not even willing to give down to each other in such a seemingly small party as APGA?
Well, first, I'm actually talking to you from Oka. And I've had conversations totally unsolicited because, I'm not involved in Anambra politics, but I don't know why people think they should always discuss it with me. Now, the question of interest could be at several levels. It could be at the level of ego. Who do they think they are not to reckon with me? I will show them. It could be at the level of, if you like, subversive funding. I've given you money, please make sure that this canopy, they never raise it. And I'll be using all kinds of things, but the objective is for me to do it. I tell you, in terms of external forces, there's sufficient, if you like, incentive for that to happen. Now, within the party, let's assume all the fractions are actually not funded by anybody, not encouraged by anybody. It will mean that they consider their grievance sufficiently strong, and their interest, the interest they are pursuing is significant enough for them to do what, in fact, can be described as anti-party activities. Because look at it, the party has chosen a candidate, the substantive leadership. There's an alternative leadership claiming to be the leadership. There's another one that's claiming all kinds of things. And these are individuals who know each other, who have been talking with each other, have been working with each other. It means that there are unresolved personal, policy, funding, or other issues that they consider important enough for them to refuse to listen when spoken to. If it's not that serious, there won't be faction. So it is quite serious. And for some, it may have built up over the years, probably 3 years, probably the entire 8 years of Obiano's leadership, probably 5 years ago, but certainly it's not something that started today. And I believe perhaps conversation may have resolved this, trading of interest, political deals, but now that primaries have taken place, individuals are claiming alternate candidacy, and claiming all manner of, giving all manner of court reasons from the court for being the party, now it's become a little intractable. And I think, quite frankly, that the party is in trouble. Not in trouble as a party, that the name doesn't exist, but in trouble in terms of the possibility of winning the election as a united house. If a faction decides to do any action, they will still remain in the party, but they will vote against a candidate they do not like if that's the one that elects. That should worry us, as I said earlier.
Well, I do know that when my colleague Ayo talked about factions, Senator Omar shook his head here that there are no factions. I guess it means there are no factions in APGA. But I'd like to ask you, in the face of all of this, what is the Independent National Electoral Commission supposed to do? I mean, because there's all of these shenanigans are playing out in the court, within the parties. What should INEC be doing?
Okay, two things. First, briefly on what Victor said about factions. In point of fact, if I claim to be running a faction, and in law and according to the constitution of the party, my reason for making that claim doesn't make sense. Somebody can correctly say, no, there's no faction, they are just claims. So I can understand his perspective. Now, in the case of INEC, remember that INEC is a regulatory agency within a legal framework, a legal or constitutional framework that requires you to obey certain orders. So if you get an order from a court, you have to comply with it. Now the concern here, and I share that concern, is that there seems to be insufficient explanation for INEC's apparent preference in terms of which court order to obey. And that's the point Victor is making. That if some of the facts it has laid out are the way they actually are, why would INEC prefer court order A in place instead of B? So I'm a bit concerned about that. And looking at real politics, it is possible that there are individuals who have enough interest, who have secured loyalties and commitments with a cascade from the federal down to the states, that they are actually influencing the preferences of some institutions of state. Now, that is not saying anything one way or another about whether INEC is involved in this, because if you notice, INEC has been, well, my view, INEC has been improving consistently, and under Mahmoud, you can't say he's been performing too badly, but sometimes he's blamed for the confusion arising from other institutions of state. My take regarding Anambra and all the injunctions is that purely at a personal level, I do not quite understand why INEC would prefer a court order that's guiding it with reference to APGA as against other subsisting court orders from courts of coordinate jurisdiction and the rest of it. It is from that angle that somebody may be tempted to question the neutrality or the inexplicable inexplicability of the kind of response coming from INEC at the moment. But INEC did not initiate any court injunctions. It is not against APGA or APGA. It is supposed to obey orders, and that's what it has done. The other element from the angle of real politics is the question raised. Why obey order A instead of B? We think there is not enough reason to that. Now, that could be a matter of perspective, and I have no opinion on that, but certainly questions can be raised in that regard.
I'm looking at the visuals right there, I mean, of the other primaries that was conducted. I'm bringing it back here to Abuja, Dr. Kichuku. And I'm saying that the people who conducted the primaries, which you find very objectionable, are wearing the outfit of APGA, with the now leader of APGA, the recognized leader, at least at the state level. Yes. One state that you have, Willie Obiano's face as the leader of the party. So there'll be questions. I mean, it obviously means that they recognize his leadership. If that is the case, has the leader of, the leadership of APGA at that level, has he reached out to them to say, if you're doing this, for our party and in the name of our party, and he doesn't recognize them either, has there been some effort at rapprochement? Because this eventually would affect the chances of your party come November the 6th.
Well, thank you very much. Your question is very apt. One will always want to look for means of bringing people together when they are going astray. For the fact that you saw them in that primary wearing an apparel bearing Governor Obiano's face and Dim Chukwemeka Odumegwu, they wore it and went to somewhere else to organize a primary. There was a primary before this, 23rd of June. Governor Obiano was there. I was there. So many statutory delegates of APGA, like National Assembly members and members of Board of Trustees, were there. We voted where Soludo was nominated. In this primary you are looking at, there's nobody there. The state chairman of the party, the executive of the state apparatus of the party, and local government chairman, nobody was there. So how can you now come?
There was nobody there.
There are human beings. I'm talking about recognized officers of the party. Because Jude Okeke, who is saying he conducted a primary in Anambra, has no parallel structure of APGA in Anambra State. No state executive, no local government executive, no ward executive, except maybe supporters of his candidate that came to that podium, wearing this apparel. This apparel is everywhere in Anambra State. But going back to some of the issues raised by my brother Okeo Okechukwu, let me tell you, there is no way you can eliminate people who will be aggrieved in a political party or people who may want to do something to stop what is the proper thing.
No, the question
they will be there.
So for them to wear this outfit,
yes,
I mean, of course, they're trying to also confer
they would have submitted themselves
on what they're doing.
No, they are conscious of what they're doing. Yes, correct.
So, to confess on legitimacy on it, if that's what they're doing, I mean, and that's what they're telling you, that they are bona fide members of APGA, the question I'm asking is whether the leadership, I mean, as one on the apparel which they don, has reached out to them to say, if truly you're one of us and you're a part of us, why don't we do this together?
The governor has done everything he could do as the leader of the party. He set up a peace, reconciliation and outreach committee chaired by my humble self. I'm the chairman of that committee. And we have been calling people to come. Even all the people that contested the primary, they had appeared before us. Then those who were disqualified.
When was that?
No, we were inaugurated on the 8th of July. We are still sitting. We have not even finished. We are still in the process, seeing people. We invited the aspirants that were not cleared during the party screening. Some came. The one that is now nominated by Jude Okeke did not come. We reached out. I even spoke with him nearly 2 hours to submit himself to peaceful dialogue. When he was going out to run for this election, he came to me, and I gave him proper advice, which he didn't take. He's entitled to his own decision.
So you're aware that people must have felt aggrieved about
how... If you don't get something you want, the first tendency is to be aggrieved.
Yeah, so
people
that have been thrown up as a result of these processes, they are not unknown members of APGA.
No, they are members of, some of them are in the state, yes, but the leadership that emerged, I don't know the person. I don't know the person. So how will somebody come to me and tell me that the party I led for 10 years as chairman, and I've been involved in its operation since 2002, that I will not know somebody who emerged as acting national chairman. Even the people that are going with Jude Okeke today, they knew the correct leadership of APGA. His nominated candidate purchased his form to run for this governorship through Victoria's led executive. He went there and purchased the form, paid 22 million. He went to the screening, he was not cleared. And he started this dissident action. So it's not as if he doesn't know who the chairman of APGA is, the correct leadership. It was through this correct leadership of APGA that he went to the House of Reps in 2019. So all these things we are seeing is because people will now start discussing what they are reading. They don't exist. As to the issue of APGA being in tatters, with due respect to my brother, I take exception to that word, that APGA is in tatters. APGA is being challenged, and it's a normal political action, The important thing is that the INEC should be able to put forward the right candidate nominated by the party and allow the people of Anambra to decide who goes ahead. If you list Soludo tomorrow, that's what they're afraid of. If you list Soludo tomorrow as a candidate of APGA, the election is won. They're aware of it. My brother also alluded to people who are instigating this crisis because they don't want APGA to win. He danced around it, but he knew what he was talking about. This is not new in APGA. In 2009, you remember that Morrissey vowed that P2B will not contest 2010 governorship election through APGA. I was in all the courtrooms with the then INEC chairman, and we had to overpower him to submit to the rule of law, where the former chairman he was trying to add to nominate a candidate. A court had affirmed his expulsion from the party. He disregarded it. We took it very hotly with him, and eventually he caved in. That's how P2B contested. This time around, they know what they're doing. APGA is entrenched in Anambra State. They've been there for 16 years, and they've performed. The governor just added an international airport there. So they are afraid that once you go to an election with APGA in Anambra State, you will lose. So the strategy is to disorganize the party, to weaken it. But that is in the eyes of, in the thinking of the public, that this thing is happening now, that people are beginning to analyze, like my friend, that APGA is in tatters. Let's have our candidate that we nominated. Leave the rest to us. It's the party I've been part of.
Well, you say the governor has performed, he's built an airport, but there are reports that he's owing doctors, resident doctors, 8 months salary in Anambra State Teaching Hospital.
That's not verified.
That is verified. No, that's according to the National Association of Resident Doctors.
Please, you see, when elections come, people are sponsored to go to the street and begin to say all kinds of things.
The National Association of
Obiano
Resident
is known
Doctors
to be a governor. I'm coming.
Group that has been sponsored. They have been saying this
They
for
may
a
have
while.
an issue with the government, not that they were not paid. They may have an issue with government. If you get there now, the issue may be leave allowance and things like that. Obiano is reputed to be paying salaries. He's called an alert governor. Every 24th or 25th of every month, every civil servant in Anambra State gets his pay from 2014 till date.
Well, let us hope.
So if they are saying it to throw dust, I can tell you, if you go deep into it, the issues will be different. It's not as they are claiming.
Well,
but be that as it may, the cardinal issue for us now is for the INEC to be guided by the rule of law. The issue of going to take a stranger and aid him to put a candidate in APGA, citing a court order that is an invalid court order. Let me describe that order as invalid court order. Because the judgment has been appealed.
We're totally out of time. I'm sure that INEC, will be listening. I'm sure they will have someone who certainly has been detailed to monitor what it is that people
what is
have
happening is that
we have to go now. We're totally out of time. We're totally out of time, Senator Victor May. We have to thank you for your submissions.
Let INEC do the right thing.
Yes.
And restore the candidate the party nominated, because this thing will fail. By the Court of Appeal, when they go through it, this Jigawa judgment will be turned to shreds.
We will keep our eyes on the ball, Senator Victor Omeh. We will keep our eyes on the ball, and we will see how matters eventually proceed ahead of the November the 6th governorship elections in Anambra State. We have been speaking with Senator Victor Omeh, who is the former national chairman of the All Progressives Grand Alliance. Thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Edit this morning.
Thank you. That's the much the time permits. But I tell you, Soludo will contest the election.
It's over now to
and APGA will win resoundingly. We are still there.
Thank you, Mark. The issues are just not going to go away. One of the questions that I would like to... Well, Dr. Ikechukwu, let me just put that question to you. I mean, all that Senator May is asking for is that INEC should field a specific candidate. How do you think, how bright are the chances of the party if INEC should field the candidates being proposed by Senator May without the issues of consensus not being fully and substantively addressed?
Of course, we must put on record that Soludo is a good candidate in his own right. Anambra is my state. I want a good governor. But stepping forth as a candidate is different from winning an election. With all no matter how strong a lion is, if you have hyenas biting it on all sides, you can't kill all of them at once. It will get. It is also true that APGA has the advantage of incumbency, but directly to your question, there are likely to be challenges because of these internal contradictions. Now, that doesn't mean APGA will lose, because APGA may also have some trick up its sleeve that people are not aware of. but it just raises the odds that you have a good candidate, but there's some division within the House. No matter how much you try to dismiss it or say it doesn't matter, the truth is that it matters. The truth is that it's likely to deny you 1 or 2 votes. The truth is that it's also likely to affect general perception of your position as a party. And that might lead to loss of election. Whether it will actually lead to that is to be determined by the contest itself. So nobody can ab initio assert with absolute certainty that APGA will win or lose. No, that will be determined by the election itself. But let's have it on record. A preferred candidate Victor is talking about is a good candidate. In his own right, one would like to see him contest with other good candidates from other parties, because if either of the good candidates win, it is good governance and development for the state, which is what we want. But we cannot off the cuff say that there will be no impact. No, there will be serious impact arising from these divisions. And the sooner the party results in, the better. It's one thing to declare confidently that you are no challenge. Is another. There's nothing more dangerous than a rat in a food store. A rat is very small, but it can do a lot of damage to your store. That is the worry. APGA should worry about rats. End of story.
There is something that you also said the other time, and I just want to, you to expatiate a little further on that. You have talked about the fact that, those other political parties also have their own issues. So, I mean, if all the parties are having issues, I mean, doesn't that in any way also raise the chances of this political party being the strongest in the state, even though it's having its own issues?
Well, I think he's the incumbent. I don't know whether that translates into being the strongest when it comes to the new election. It's a sitting duck situation that we have now. The governor has second tenure has ended, so they are contesting all the parties. PDP in particular has very slim chance, quite frankly, in my view. No matter what they choose to say, both at the national and state level, their chances are close to nothing in Anambra State unless they resolve it. And I don't think, I may be mistaken, not being involved in the main engine room, but if what we are seeing is anything to go by, there's a delusional element on the part of some of the existing Anambra factions of the party, who keep saying we shall see what will happen, we are working on it, the Lord is on our side. You see, you must not mistake a political contest for a prayer meeting, and I think that's what some people are working with. There is strong contest. Obioro Okonkwo is a force to reckon with. Don't kid yourself. Ekunife, who contested from the central, which was not a favored, came third. Yes, people are joining forces with Paul, who himself is a wonderful candidate I will love. But this battle has to be won first before you can talk about the goodness of the person who will be governor. And it doesn't seem to me they are doing enough. So all of them considered a party that might just ambush everybody during the night, as some of the principal actors they are known to do, might turn out to be either APC, not because APC is strong, but because he might use other means, in quote, or Ivan Yoba and his party. People shouldn't deceive themselves. These are clear and distinct possibilities. PDP, APGA, they have serious issues. Probably PDP much more than APGA. But to use that to then say that, okay, because other parties have problems, that increases APGA's chances. No, it would be dangerous to assume that. I would rather fix my leaking roof than allow it and say that, well, others have leaking roofs, so they may be soaked more by the rain than myself. No, that's not going to work. Not in
well, those are valid points that you have raised. I mean, coupled with also the opportunity to go to courts, the role of the judiciary and the electoral umpire itself, and which I've also referenced. But we have to thank you for now, Dr. Ikechukwu, Executive Director, Development Specs Academy. Thank you so much for your time and your perspectives today.
Thank you.
Well, there is more to come, and we'll go to it right away.
Act Amendment Bill, the government identified with the need for a free, fair, and credible elections in the country and called on the National Assembly to entrench electronic transmission of results of elections in the nation's electoral jurisprudence. The meeting requested Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC), the only body empowered by the Constitution to conduct elections, to deploy appropriate technologies necessary to ensure that the votes of every Nigerian is counted and meant to count. The meeting further called on the National Communications Commission, especially the Universal Service Provision Fund, Nigerian Communications Limited, NACOMSAT, telephone companies, telcos, and all the relevant stakeholders to ensure that universal access and service of information and communication technologies are provided, especially in rural and underserved areas of the country before the 2023 general election. The meeting condemned the attempt to force on all political parties one method of conducting primaries, that is by direct method only through the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. The governors noted that the method is prone to massive leaking, as evidenced by a situation where President Buhari scored 15 million votes in the 2018 direct primaries, only to score 15 million votes for the entire country in the 2019 general election. The governors advised that political parties should be allowed to decide whether to use direct or indirect methods of conducting primaries as part of internal democracy in political parties. The governors reiterated once again the need for the NNPC and other revenue-generating agencies of government to strictly abide by the Constitution by remitting all their revenues less cost of production to the financial account as provided for by Section 162 of the Constitution.
Indeed, that was a communique of the People's Democratic Party governors meeting, which held in Bauchi yesterday, being read by the governor of Sokoto State and chairman of that meeting, Aminu Tambuwal. We have with us to shed a little more light and also on the state, concerns around the state of the major opposition party, the People's Democratic Party. To speak on that, we have Mr. Kola Ologbodiyan, who is a spokesperson of the People's Democratic Party. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you very much, Maokwe. Thank you for this opportunity.
Well, there have been, huge concerns around the state, the preparedness of the major opposition party, the People's Democratic Party. There have been questions about the role that it is currently playing in opposition. People have, raised questions as to whether or not it's filling in true form the role that an opposition party is supposed to play in a democracy, or is it still reeling somewhat from the defeat it suffered in 2015 and 2019?
Well, honestly, Maokwe, let me be clear on this, that the People's Democratic Party has moved beyond the supposed defeat it suffered in 2015 and 2019. For the 2015 election, we can understand, but for the 2019 election, with due respect to the Supreme Court, the People's Democratic Party believes that it won the 2019 presidential election. And beyond that, it was able to move from 10 states that was handed over to the current leadership to 17 states before one was stolen, which was Imo State, by stalling the candidate that won the election. I'm talking about Honorable Emeka Hedioha, and bringing somebody who scored the 4th position to become #1. And as we recall, we protested that vehemently, but the deed had been done. And we were able to move, like I said earlier on, from 10 states to 17 states. So we are building.
So why you protested one, I mean, some people will say that you also got another one through the same courts in Bayelsa State.
Yes.
You didn't protest that one?
No, we got that one. It wasn't as if our candidate had was stalled and somebody who scored the 4th position was brought to become #1. We didn't protest the one. Certainly, we couldn't have protested the one in Bayelsa State because it was clear that issue bordering on certificate forgery came up, and the candidate was disqualified.
The question
but in the situation, we must get it very clear, Maokwe. The situation in Imo was such that a police officer, not INEC, declared results, presented it to the court, and the court upheld it. That is not in the electoral law. It is not in the constitution either. So that was the situation that we had in Imo State. So I just wanted to make it clear that the party has moved beyond 2019. As you can see, our governors have just met in Bauchi, and they meet every 3 months, and they also provide mechanism and assistance to the party.
They're about the loudest. They're about the loudest, even though some people say they're not exactly a constitutionally, that's the PDP constitution recognized body. They're like an external body to the constitution of the PDP. But they are one of the most vocal bodies within the opposition party. I mean, right now they are taking to task this issue of electronic transmission of election results, and they also say that they don't want direct primaries. The parties should be allowed to determine whatever means it is that they want to use to conduct their primaries. But from the party itself, and I'm sure that you have seen attacks even within the ranks of the PDP, that the opposition is not as vocal as it ought to be in a democracy. Do you agree with those who say that?
Well, I do not agree with those saying that. And I say so, absolutely. Yes, I agree, in as much as the party in itself is a body constituted by various organs. The function and activities of a singular organ does not torpedo what the party is doing, because they are a part of the party. So having laid that foundation, there is no issue that had been raised in the Governors Forum that the party has not participated in the conversation before now. So what the Governors Forum has done is to go back, review all that had happened in the last 3 months, and came out with a position of strength, a position that strengthens the positions the party had held before now. So that's what has happened. The Governors Forum is part of the PDP Governors Forum. It's part of the enlarged PDP. So what they are doing is to strengthen the voice of the party. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It does not remove the fact that the party is functioning.
How strong is the voice of the party itself?
If you ask me how strong is the voice of the party, I will ask you, did you follow the confirmation process of Loretta Onoche? And if you follow the confirmation process of Loretta Onoche, you know that the party stood stoutly. You must understand that even in whatever we do on a daily basis, we have the force of the various organs of the party propelling us on what to do. So the party does not operate in isolation of its organs. It doesn't. The party operates in conjunction with its various organs.
Well, I'm sure that you're no stranger to Mr. Kasim Afegbua. He worked very closely with the party and also the presidential candidate of the PDP in 2019. He's had pretty strong criticisms of how the PDP and how it's been run, especially of the National Working Committee of the PDP, and he thinks that somehow there needs to be a change of leadership in the NWC for the party to be able to realize its potential. What are your thoughts along that line?
Unfortunately, Kasim Afegbua is not a member of the People's Democratic Party. I would have suggested to him that he should take his complaints and his desires to the National Convention that will hold either before December or in December.
When did he cease to be a member of the PDP?
Well, he's the one that will provide answers to that, because I'm aware that he was expelled from the party, right from his ward to his local government and his state. But that's not even the question. The question is that inconsequential blackmailer like Kasim Afegbua cannot come to the public arena and begin to try to harass the party. Number one, like I said earlier on, is not a member of our party. But number two, even concerning the issues that he had raised, it is strange to me that people are providing him media space. And I say so because Afegbua, you will recall, left the People's Democratic Party ahead of the Edo election because he wanted to be a deputy governor to a particular candidate that he thought would have emerged, and the candidate did not emerge, and the dynamics did not favor him, and Governor Obaseki also came with his deputy, and because of that, he was angry. He left the party. He worked for Reverend Pastor Ise Iyamu in the Edo election, insulted the hell out of our candidate, denigrated the party. Then suddenly, the same NWC that he claimed that should be disbanded went into that election and defeated the candidate that he supported. And within a twinkling of an eye, he came to the public arena again and is claiming that, oh, he's now a member of the People's Democratic Party. Maokwe, look, we must find a way no matter how politicians try to behave as if nothing matters, for us who are professionals in the media space, we must find a way to streamline the processes for politicians.
Mr. That's another issue.
Let me make the point.
Yes, please, by all means, go ahead.
Okay. Now, what I mean is that somebody cannot claim to be in PDP in the night, and the following morning, he went to APC, supported the candidate. The candidate lost. In the afternoon, he came back again and said he's a member of PDP. And nobody in the media space has asked the question. I thought you went to work for Reverend Obaseki. I thought you were in APC. And decently, in decent environment, so that you went to work for Pastor Eseyamo. In decent environment, will Kazim Afegbua have the audacity? On what moral pedestal should he be standing and be engaging in political discourse?
So, as I was trying to bring out, I was saying that, these are not the issues. I have called him, because he is supposed to be a member of your party. He left the APC some time ago, and he came and he worked very, he was one of the spokesperson of the PDP presidential candidate. You're not denying that?
No. I will go into that.
Yes, he was, wasn't he?
I will go into that.
No, there will be no time for that. I just want you to confirm
what
he was a spokesperson.
Kazim Afegbua.
He was a Mr. Olabode, it's a yes or no question.
Okay,
was he a recognized person?
He was
a spokesperson.
He was on a paid employment in the party, and I say that clearly, and I say that without any.
So whether he was paid or not, yes. The question is: was he a recognized?
He was a spokesperson.
That's what I need you to confirm.
Yeah, he was a spokesperson.
So now, so if that is settled, then that is settled. What I need to do is move forward to the other issues. We're bringing out whether or not the PDP has lived up to its role as an opposition party, has been able to play that role within our democracy. I've had cause to have further conversations with not just him, with other members, known members of your party, who acknowledge and admit that it would seem that the PDP has been dithering in its role as an opposition party since it left office in 2015. There are those who believe that, it is because the PDP hasn't had a chance to play that role that somehow they're still trying to find their feet in opposition. They think that, these are leaders of thought within your own party who acknowledge that you've not been as... we all saw the APC. We saw the APC. We've seen opposition parties when they were not in power, and the kind of role that they played, putting the PDP in the government in power on its toes. We haven't quite seen that since the PDP went into opposition. You don't agree with them?
I do not totally agree with you. And I will tell you...
Totally is the key word there.
And yes, I use that word emphatically. I do not totally.
So what is the part that you don't agree with?
The parts that I don't agree with are very clear. And I said it earlier in the course of this discussion. It is the same party that fought APC in 2017, 2018, ahead of the 2019 election. It is the same party that won elections in Adamawa, that won election in Bauchi, that won election in Imo State.
It is only coming together. So I will let you make your point, but it would seem that all you're bringing out is about elections. It would seem that the role of opposition should go beyond elections, shouldn't it?
I'm establishing the issues.
By all means, go ahead. I just want to establish the fact that you shouldn't just
you said that we've been differing. And I'm saying that the same party that fought APC to a standstill in 2019 could not be said to have deterred. If we had 17 states, and out of the 17 states, one was stolen, 3 defected, it doesn't remove the fact that we won elections in those states. It doesn't. And now, proceeding further, Maupe, it is clear, and strongly too, that in every conversation that we have had in this country concerning the mass failure of the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, the People's Democratic Party has a point, and it has made those points very vociferously. We must accept that. But when you are comparing People's Democratic Party to the brigandage that happened ahead of the 2019 election, the People's Democratic Party understands the nuances of our nation And part of the reason why we are suffering in the realm of the insecurity today was because when the People's Democratic Party administration President Goodluck Jonathan was determined to fight insecurity, the APC went around the world and said that military hardware should not be sold to the government of President Goodluck Jonathan. They even went as far as going to South Africa when the administration of President Goodluck Jonathan wanted to go through the underground measures to get military hardware. They went in there, stopped the process, and ensured that the money that they took there was seized. Where are we today? Where has that brought us? So if we go ahead again and fight the APC with the same mechanism, who will suffer? It is the ordinary Nigerians who are being kidnapped on a daily basis, who are being mauled on a daily basis, who are being killed on a daily basis that will suffer. So as far as the People's Democratic Party is concerned, we are engaging in constructive opposition, constructive criticism, and at the fullness of time, the People's Democratic Party will come out in its full force.
You say you do not totally agree with me. It does mean that there are parts of what I have said which you agree with. What parts do you agree with?
Well, the one that I totally disagree with was the issue of deterring. That it appears the party is deterring. I don't agree. Yeah, I don't agree, and I've made that point pointedly.
So what parts do you agree with?
The part that I agree with.
Yes, when you say I don't totally agree with you.
Well, you may have some points about the internal challenges in the party. You can have some points there. But to say that we are not providing opposition, we are not speaking to
if you
what I understand by your deterring is that we are not providing opposition, we are not speaking to issues, we are not making protests. In the Loretta Chess case, we were under the rain in the National Assembly. In the Loretta Chess case. In the case of the election of Emeka Ihedioha, we went on all the international community. We are doing so even as I speak. We are engaging the world. We are engaging with the civil society on issues. But from what I understand by what you said, is like, oh, we have not brought in the kind of brigandage that APC did. We cannot do that.
I never use such a term.
You don't have to use it.
I do not use such a term, and I think it's very important to put that on record.
Okay.
Mr. Logbodinyo, let me quickly flip this to Lagos now, where I know Ayo has questions for you.
Well, thank you, Balkwe. Mr. Rugale, one of the things that bothers me is the role of opposition. Many times it's always, I mean, you talked about the fact that the PDP does not want to raise issues that will make life difficult for Nigerians, and that's a good thing. But to not hear the opposition at all, that's another thing altogether. Many people even think now that rather than the leading opposition party playing the role of opposition strongly and vehemently, it's the media or the CSO, civil society organizations, that are playing that role. And could that be because, the PDP is having so many issues in pockets of states all over the nation?
Thank you very much, Ayo. There's what is called collaboration. If the party is collaborating with CSOs, collaborating in the media space to bring attention of Nigerians to the challenges of governance brought upon our nation by the incompetency of the All Progressives Congress and President Muhammadu Buhari. I do not see anything that's wrong with that. If you recall, Ayo, ahead of the 2015 election, the process was largely driven by the citizens. It was not as if, because APC was so massive in its membership, that was why they were able to kick out the People's Democratic Party. No, the process was citizen-driven. And as we speak today, Nigerians have come to an understanding and a realization that on all the promises made by all the Progressives Congress and President Muhammadu Buhari, that they have totally failed.
Well, Mr. Logbodinyo, let me piggyback on something that you just said now. Just 1 second. Just 1 second. Well, just 1 second. Just 1 second, Mr. Logbodinyo. Now, there was something that you said about, the fact that the particular election was citizen-led, was citizen-driven. It was citizen-driven perhaps because there was leadership from the opposition at the time, which, as you said, kicked out the PDP. Perhaps that's the kind of leadership that the people are expecting from the opposition party as well. The CSOs are not going to play partisan politics. The media is not constitutionally allowed to play any partisan role in politics. The job of the media is to bring the issues for the people to be able to judge, and that's what we always do here. So in terms of providing that leadership for the people to have an alternative voice to what government is saying at any given point in time, perhaps the weakness of the PDP in doing that is the issue for the people who are wondering what's the PDP doing as an opposition party.
Like I rightly said, I'm not saying that the media could become partisan, but I say that the media should provide the space for the opposition to air their views and to also thrive. That's the position I'm making. I'm not saying that the media could be partisan. No, but there must be a balance between what the ruling government and the ruling party is saying and what space the opposition party also has. But having said that, if you look at it, if you recall what happened in the pre-2015 days, you will discover that any narrative that the APC as it then was brought out, was massively agreeable to the citizens. But today, because of the situation in which Nigerians have been pushed into, people have lost interest in the political space. This is not just a matter of whether the PDP is playing a role or not. Take, for example, the election that held in Ogun and Lagos. Look at the number of voters registered in these respective states and look at the participation of Nigerians. People are becoming despondent. People are no longer interested in what the politicians and what the political class is doing.
The things that one might want to also play out here
of the National Assembly.
Well, you see, one of the things that it's the reason for which you are here, the alternative voice that people want to hear is, okay, this is what government is doing and we don't completely agree, but there is no alternative voice from the opposition, from any opposition at that, except the PDP governors, which according to, you know, some of the people in the top leadership of the PDP, the PDP Governors Forum, as Markwe also pointed out, doesn't have a constitutional role in the PDP's constitution. But the PDP as opposition is supposed to play a leadership role. So in terms of providing that leadership as opposition, that's the challenge. For instance, we're talking about unemployment and all of these things. These are the issues that the APC as opposition always raised and which, you know, people could relate with. But there isn't such a voice from the PDP, and you are the spokesperson of the party.
Well, it will interest, I don't know, but it will interest you to know that there is no issue. There is no issue that was discussed at the meeting of the Governors Forum yesterday that the People's Democratic Party has not engaged in. And that's why I said that what the Governors Forum has done is to buffer the position of the party on all these issues. I do not want to come into a public space and to engage with my professional colleagues on the role that they have played in not encouraging opposition to thrive. I will not do that. I will also not go into the issues within our political party in the public space. But it is clear, and magnificently so, that there is no issue that's contained in the communique of the Governors Forum that the People's Democratic Party, as a political party, has not raised against the sitting government. None. How it appeals to the citizenry is a different ballgame entirely.
So if these are some of the complaints that were, I mean, I'm sure must have come to your ears, what do you think that the PDP should be doing to address it? Because as far as people are concerned, they're wondering whether, I mean, even going by what is happening for off-season elections, whether the PDP's house will be together ahead of the 2023 elections. I mean, whether or not the PDP will be able to provide a viable opposition, because it would seem that so far so good, governors are defecting from the PDP, and they're wondering whether that is a sign of things to come in 2023.
We don't believe in the party that will be a sign of things to come. And like I said, I will always go back to the 2019 election because it's the spectacular example that we have had as opposition party. We've only participated in one election, which is one presidential election, which is the 2019 election. But having said that, we are convinced within the party that we will provide that formidable group that confronted the APC in 2019. And we also, and that is why we are in the trenches on the various amendments going on in the National Assembly, so that we can truly push for an electoral process that will be free, fair, clean, clear, and transparent. Until we have that, nobody is sure.
How do you intend to do that? When you see the kind of figures that we have seen, especially in the Senate, at least where there was a clear vote, how do you intend to push that to the harmonized bill which is going to be sent to the president?
I cannot come out and speak to the strategies of the party, but let me just tell you what we will do in the immediate is that we have called a meeting of our parliamentarians and the party to ask for reasons why things went the way they did. We also understood some of the things that happened behind the scene as a political party. How those who were supposed to work with the party from the other parties suddenly pulled out and all that. We know all that, but we also believe that there's a need for a stronger cohesion within our political party in the parliament, and we are working towards that.
Well, we have to thank you for your time this morning. Thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Daily. Mr. Kola Ologbodinyo is a national spokesperson of the People's Democratic Party and has been speaking to us on the current state of the major opposition party, the PDP. Well,
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I want to believe that we'll have time for your mails. Let's quickly go to them. Prince Azubike sent this one in, talking about governor's demand for electronic transmission of results. He says it is laughable to hear governors, first as southern governors and then as PDP governors, come out to demand that the NAS must entrench electronic transmission of results. How many of them have entrenched it for the local government elections where they hold sway as governors? They control their House of Reps and the judiciary and yet have not deemed it fit to introduce electronic elections. I believe he means the State's House of Assembly. Interestingly, the only governor that has done that does not belong to these two groups. So that is from Prince Azubike.
Well, UM Epo also were talking about the PDP. He says PDP will be shocked that if they do not invigorate their opposition machinery as an alternative platform for Nigerians, come 2023, APC may return to power, as the devil you know is better than the angel that is unserious, unarticulated, and self-centered. Examples can be seen in the recent LGA elections in Lagos and Ogun states.
Shinawa Kingsley has this one about Anambra 2021. He says the hula baloo and the shenanigans within our political parties are enough reasons for our electoral body to accommodate independent candidacy. They all lack progressive ideology and a fertile womb to birth credible leadership that will deliver our country from the shackles of poverty, insecurity, corruption, backwardness, hunger, etc. That's from Oshinawa Kingsley.
Ikedi Chris on same issue says Anambra 2021. The right leadership of APGA should wake up and apply high level of participatory communication and dialogue to resolve these internal party problems.
Olagunjo Oladele has this one on Anambra 2021 as well. He said politics in Nigeria, particularly Anambra State, is very brutal. Too many egos to massage. APGA should be careful because conquering a great institution is usually difficult from the outside. Destabilize and deplete is a tactic that has been used throughout history to destroy institutions from within.
Also on same issues, Mutana Farouk says, one would have expected the leaders of the Saudis to be more united and formidable in conducting themselves in terms of political development, but it is not so due to the political dramatism that is playing out in Anambra 2021.
Well, a lot of issues to consider. Ayo, and I always, you know, want to say that we hope that at the end of the day, whatever plays out should be about the people, should be about development, not just elections and for the sake of elections alone. So all eyes on the polls. So let us see how the people of Anambra react to what is developing in their state ahead of the polls. But whenever that is settled, when eventually it is settled, and even as they go there, you know, the eye should not be taken away from the ball of development. On that note, we have to say thank you so much for...
Go ahead.
Thank you so much for watching this morning. Thank you for sending in your mails and comments. We never, ever take them for granted. I'm Maokwe Yusuf.
And I'm Ayo Makede. Have a wonderful day and please remain safe.